So this is the diagram showing the ureter. In ureter, the lining epithelium is urothelium. That urothelium is resting over a lamina propria or subendothelial connective tissue. The endothelium is a lining epithelium. Endothelium is the lining epithelium of the structures which have got a cavity, so that the endothelium of the ureter is formed with transitional epithelium. Outer to this or transitional epithelium is resting over a connective tissue that is named as a lamina propria. Lamina propria is a connective tissue which is formed with in that there we can see the loose areolar connective tissue, some sort of blood vessels, some nerve endings also can be seen in relation with the lamina propria, which is outer to the epithelium. So the transitional epithelium and the lamina propria together forms the innermost layer of the ureter, that is the mucosa. Outer to mucosa there is a muscular layer, that is second layer or the intermediate layer, that is the muscular layer or the muscle cord. That muscular layer contains smooth muscle which is running longitudinally and circularly. Inner longitudinal layer of smooth muscle can be seen. Outer to that there is outer circularly running smooth muscle can be seen. So the muscle cord of ureter confined to two layers, or they are forming to two layers, longitudinally running fibers and circularly running smooth muscle fibers. Inner longitudinal layer, outer circularly running circular layer. So this is forming into intermediate zone or the intermediate layer of the ureter wall. And outer to intermediate layer there is external layer of ureter, or outer fibrous layer of ureter, that is formed by the adventitia. It is named as the adventitia. The externalmost layer of the ureter is known as the adventitia. That adventitia, it is named as the adventitia. Adventitia contains the adipose tissue or loosely arranged areolar tissue is there. Adipose tissue is there. Adipose tissue means that is part lobules can be seen in relation with it, and the blood vessels which are supplying the ureter wall and the nerve endings which are supplying the ureter wall also can be seen, and this adventitia merges with the connective tissue of the adjacent structure. So that is the separating connective tissue layer or external defacial layer of the ureter, which separates the ureter from the rest of the tissues. So that in this we can see the diagram how we can draw it. This is the diagram showing the ureter. Here the ureter have got inner lining of transitional epithelium, so that we have to draw the transitional epithelium. And this ureter can be identified with its star-shaped lumen. The cavity can be seen in a star-shaped. So the star-shaped lumen is lined with a mucosa. That mucosa contains the transitional epithelium. Outer to the transitional epithelium there is the lamina propria, the connective tissue layer. The lamina propria is the connective tissue layer which contains the loose areolar connective tissue. Loose areolar connective tissue with some sort of blood vessels and nerve endings can be seen in the lamina propria. Outer to lamina propria, the intermediate zone which is confined by means of two layers of muscle cord. We can see the cut sections of longitudinally running fibers like rounded in nature, and the circularly running fibers as the continuous layer. So this is inner longitudinal layer. This represents the inner longitudinal layer. The cut sections of smooth muscle represents the this bundles, and like that this is outer circularly running smooth muscle bundle. Outer to that there is the connective tissue, that is the adventitia. In the adventitia you can draw the adipose tissue like rounded structure simply. The adipose tissue is the fat lobules or the fat content, fat filled bubbles. So they can be drawn like transparent rounded structures, and like that there is the blood vessel. You can draw like elongated cut sections of blood vessels, and this is the area which represents the adventitia. The adventitia is a deep fascia or the connective tissue that connects and separates and merges with the adjacent tissue. So this is the structure, how it appears under the microscope. The ureter can be seen like this. So we will study the histology of the ureter. The ureter is a thick-walled tubular structure. It consists of a star-shaped narrow lumen surrounded by its wall. Walk എന്നാണ് ഞാൻ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. Its wall ആണ് കേട്ടോ. Surrounded by a wall made up of 3 layers. The innermost layer is the mucosa, middle layer is the muscular cord, outer layer is the adventitia or the fibrous cord. The lumen is star-shaped. The mucosa lined with the transitional epithelium and subendothelial connective tissue known as the lamina propria. The epithelium have got 5 to 6 layer thick of, that is the urothelium or the transitional epithelium. The lamina propria contains scattered lymphocytes, small blood vessels and nerve endings. The mucosa is folded because of the presence of underlying lamina propria. That's why the lumen can be seen as star-shaped in nature, because of the foldings of the mucosa. This is the foldings of the mucosa. It can be, the lumen can be seen as the lumen can be seen as the star-shaped in nature. The muscle layer, the middle layer formed with smooth muscle and intervening connective tissue. Smooth muscles are arranged in 2 layers, the inner longitudinal layer and the outer circular layer. The adventitia is the outermost layer. It is the outer fibrous cord. It is made up of loose connective tissue with blood vessels, lymphatics, nerve plexuses, adipose tissue and merges with the surrounding tissue. This is how it appears under the microscope. Next is about the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder